Hey, everybody, welcome to the Daily Self-Publishing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Sutton. Today, I'm with the amazing Kathleen Gage. Kathleen is an award-winning marketing strategist, speaker, author, and consultant. She's passionate about working with solopreneurs, authors, consultants, manufacturers, companies with plant-based vegan wellness industries. So Kathleen is going to talk about, she has 20 books to her name. We're going to be talking about that and all the great stuff that she does. Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Jeremy, great to be here. And the only reason I know I have 20 books is because Alexa told me so. I guess I'm just like a super achiever and I keep writing books and Alexa said, oh, you've got 20 books. So
yeah, I love it. I love that because, we start doing all this stuff. You told me before we jumped on, you've been writing for like 15, 20 years and you do so much over the years and you don't remember what went where and how it went there and things like that.
Absolutely. I can't even remember what I had for breakfast, let alone how many books I've written, and I've actually been writing since I was a kid. I can remember actually in third grade, my third grade teacher was very encouraging. I wrote a story and she was so encouraging. And I remember at that point, I thought I would love to be a writer. And I don't even know where that thought came from, but it took me many years to actually get to a point where I was doing a lot of writing. And I one day realized I'm a writer.
Yeah. It's funny. I just did a training for, I'm a physical therapist is what I do in the daytime. And that sounds weird. And then at night and every other time I work on books and podcasts and things like that. But I just did a presentation for a group in Ireland last night. And, one of the things that I talked about was we are all writers.
Yes.
What do you call a writer? Dad, mom, friend, cousin, brother, plumber, whatever. You can be a writer. Nobody has to give you that permission. So I love that you say that you've been a writer since you were a kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I actually started writing in the fourth grade. So we had a teacher, same thing, very, very encouraging. We did a lot of creative writing. And then I did some of that, different times in high school and college. But really, I had no idea that I wanted to be a writer then. But, here we are several years later. And
absolutely. Well, and it's amazing if we have any teachers listening and watching, it's amazing how important that influence can be. And to really keep that in mind, that if a child is aspiring to do something, instead of saying, oh, why would you want to do that? Because that also happened a lot as a kid where people would go, you a writer? Oh, I can't believe that. And now I make a living from my writing, so shame on them.
There you go. Absolutely. Let's call them right now on the podcast live and talk.
Absolutely.
No, it's funny because I have someone one of the amazing things, Kathleen, is when I started doing writing and podcasting, two of my absolute favorite things to do. And I know you talk about that as well on your website. And I picked up your book, Virtual Book Tours for Indie Authors. I'm going to download that today and read it because anyway, I know it's an amazing resource. So I started reaching people all over the world. And I have someone that I've mentored a little bit from India. And she messaged me one time on Facebook and she said, Jeremy, I met with a friend and he said, how do I expect to write this book and publish it? And I'm not an author. I'm not a marketer. I'm not an editor. And I said, ask him if he has a book. And she was like, he doesn't. I said, then stop listening. It doesn't matter. And she reached out to me a few months ago. I didn't hear from her for a while. She reached out to me a few months ago. She has her book. It's going to be traditionally published in India. So it's like, okay, well, I guess you were an author, weren't you?
That's incredible. Well, you just made a great point. It's like, don't listen to the people who haven't done it. Don't listen to the people who are going to be discouraging you. Really find the people that can help you to figure out the way to make it a reality. Because nowadays it's actually so easy to get published. And the easy part is writing the book. The hard part is marketing and selling the book, because virtually anybody can write a book, but it's, are you going to make a profit from it? If that's your goal. I think one important thing for people to realize is you have to figure out what your goal is, because if you're just writing to be writing and it's just a passion and you don't care if you make money, that's one thing. I actually had a client a few years ago, multimillionaire. He was a dentist, still is, and had a huge practice. He wrote a book on his philosophy around business. And we had this whole plan for how he was going to make money with the book. Well, he ended up giving hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of books away. And I said, Joe, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I have plenty of money. I just want to give the book away to help, to encourage people. And I thought, well, that's really interesting, because on the front end, he thought he wanted to make money, but on the back end, it really wasn't that important to him. So you have to get clear on that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And, we talk about people that encourage you. And And someone asked yesterday in a group I'm in, who inspired you to be an entrepreneur? And this guy named Greg Todd, who's a physical therapist in Florida, and he coaches, now hundreds of healthcare providers, regardless of what they are, on how to build online businesses and do things other than just be paid for something you do on an hourly basis. Not to knock healthcare or anything, but really we get paid as a technician. We do a service and we get paid, and it's an hourly or it's really in units of time always. And there's so many better ways to do things, and where you get paid for your knowledge and your experience, which is books and podcasts and courses and things like that. But it's at the same time, I've had hundreds, or not hundreds, but several people say, "Oh, you'll never be able to do that. How do you expect to be able to do that?" And we do it. It's because you don't listen to those people.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Those people can either stop us from fulfilling what we're here to do, or they can encourage us in a way of like, well, I'm going to show you. I actually had a boss many years ago. I was working at GTE Health Systems, and there was this boss that never encouraged anybody to better themselves, and he always discouraged them from their dreams. And I wanted to be a demonstrator within the company, which meant presentations. And he goes, "You, a speaker, give me a break." He goes, "You'll never accomplish that." Well, I ended up being an award-winning keynote speaker pre-pandemic, and I've been on the platform in front of thousands of people. And he actually inspired me to figure out how to get on the platform, and it started with going to a Toastmasters group. So if you have a dream, especially in writing, if you have a dream, all you have to do is sit down and write, and every day you fulfill your dream. It's really quite simple. Not always easy,
really
though.
Is. No, it's not easy. And it's funny, I just made a long post on Facebook earlier about it. It's easy, but it's not easy. Like I said, anybody can write. It's really, I'm so glad you said this, the work starts when the writing is over, because you can, I've had someone say, "Well, nobody's bought my first book." I'm like, "Well, where are you promoting it?" "On my website." "Well, do you have 7 visitors a day or a week?" I mean, they're not seeing it. And that's not a knock on anybody, but if you're not Russell Brunson, then you're probably not getting traffic to your website every day in the hundreds of thousands.
Russell Brunson, yeah, and he started it with no visitors. I mean, he had to figure it out. Absolutely. I mean, anybody who's in the online space knows who Russell Brunson is, and if you don't know who he is, I invite you to check him out. But I have to say, I just picked up. I went through some of my my storage area, and I pulled out my very first book. It's called Message of Hope, and this book sold very few copies because I didn't market it. I really thought that I was going to get discovered by Oprah, and I thought that people were just going to flood the buying gates, and I was going to become a multimillionaire over my book, Message of Hope. And I think we probably sold 100 copies, and I probably gave away 100 copies more than sold. But then my book, Power Up for Profits, that book sold thousands of copies, and it generated over the years a few $1 million. I mean, it's just incredible what it's been able to do. And then the pandemic hit. And, I think it's been interesting because the pandemic gave me the opportunity to step back and say, do you really know what you're doing? Because seriously, as a keynote speaker, I would say probably 70% of my revenue just dropped off the face of the earth. Sure. And I was shocked because I thought I had this whole thing figured out. Well, I've had the opportunity to step back once I quit crying and pulled the covers over my head. It's like, okay, time to, get up and figure this thing out. And I've been able to, one more time in the 27 years I've had my business, reinvent myself. And it's been the greatest blessing. I've got to say. It wasn't easy though. And it was frightening at times. The last year and a half has been really interesting. I'd say, well, really the last year, where there were periods where I was like, do I even keep my business going? And then it's like, okay, wait a minute, just step back, figure this thing out. And I've come up with the most phenomenal direction, and writing is a big part of that.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to talk to you about some other things you said earlier, but kind of tell us what that direction is that you're going now. If you want to divulge that, I'd love to know.
Absolutely. I actually, about going on 3 years now, I decided to give up all animal-based products in my eating, and it was for health initially, and now it's for the animals. It's for my health, the animals, and the environment, because the more I learn, the more I'm committed to raising the awareness around this. And I've actually shifted my market reach and who I work with from a general online entrepreneur, coaches, consultants, yada, 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 the typical, to being very, very niched into the plant-based vegan industry. And I'm actually going to be doing a rewrite on my book, Power Up for Profits, the one that you have by your bedside, which I love
absolutely.
that. And I'm doing a rewrite on that where I'm targeting specifically the vegan and plant-based industry, because right now there's a lot of startups that, when you think startup, a lot of times you think solo entrepreneur, but we're talking startups that are getting equity funding to the tune of 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars, and they need a visibility strategy. And that's what this book is about. So the book is the foundation of everything that I'm going to be doing to really work with that industry, but also how to get on podcast shows. I have a directory that we're in the process of creating right now that has nothing but plant-based and vegan shows that people can get on. I have a training program. I'm working on a 5-day challenge on how you get on your first podcast show within that industry. And it's a very strategic system that I'm working on that comes from probably 2 decades of working in the online space. I've studied under Russell Brunson, under Tom Antion, under Matt Basic, under some of the biggest names in the industry. And I'm taking all that knowledge and years of what I've done, generating substantial revenues and shifting it into the vegan plant-based industry.
I love that. I love that you're niching down even further, because
Jeremy, nowadays it's really being so micro niched in what you're doing. A lot of people think if they micro niche, they miss a lot of opportunity. And sure, you do. You'll have people that won't work with you, but as you go deep into a micro niche, you become known as the go-to expert. And one of the blessings I've had in going into this industry, because of my podcast show, because of my blog, my Facebook group, doing a lot on LinkedIn, is very quickly I've made a name for myself. And it's not because I'm so smart. It's because I figured out the strategies years ago, and I'm simply yes, I am smart, but figuring out how to transfer what I already know into that niche.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the things that I was able to find early success on. And so I started helping people write and self-publish books in 2000, really early 19, but started my company in September or August. Mm-hmm. And then since September 2019, we've helped 70 healthcare providers write and publish books. And sometimes I think about that and I'm like, that's not a big number when you look at some of the, the global bigger companies. But then I'm like, no, that's a lot of lives that we've changed. That's a lot of people we've been able to serve. But it's because I didn't try to go out and be the entrepreneur business, book person. I did healthcare because that's who I know.
Absolutely.
And that's what I know.
Absolutely.
So I love what you're talking about.
Well, and that you really just given great evidence as to the reason why people should niche down, because you can get lost in the shuffle. If you try to be too general, you get lost in the shuffle because there are big players out there. And why would you even compete with that when if you've got a passion and an area of expertise, especially in your writing, go deep into that and you will find that you rise to the top a lot more quickly. And people can, when they're saying, oh, do you know an expert who specializes in writing books about physical therapy? Well, you're the go-to guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And it's funny. I started out just as physical therapy stuff, but now my four of my clients right now that are one-on-one, there's 3 occupational therapists and a chiropractor. So it's like, okay, now we've proved it for this one. Now we can prove it here and here and here and here and here. And eventually, maybe I'll branch out, but right now it doesn't make sense to branch out because you can only do so much, even though I have a team.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because a lot of people don't realize how much a book can help them in their marketing and in their influence and in their strategic positioning. And chiropractic, for example, about a year ago, I was going through some real issues. I have bone spurs in my neck and I had to visit my chiropractor, and he does a lot of marketing in the area. He does TV commercials and he gives tips on his TV commercial. Yeah. And that's what you can do in your book. Absolutely. You give tips on here's how you can self-heal yourself. And then people realize, well, I really can't do it without the help of my chiropractor. Sure. So I love what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And, it's funny, I haven't talked about this on this podcast. This is my 4th podcast that I've had, by the way. I have another one, Entrepreneur Rising, that's simultaneously going. I'm a serial podcaster.
Serial podcaster. I love it.
But one of the things that's a really good asset is answerthepublic.com. It's kind of like Reddit. So you can go to answerthepublic.com
Yes.
and you type in self-publishing. And so I actually did a presentation to about 6,000 people last night over in Ireland. And it says, okay, you wrote in self-publishing. Well, it gives you like 100 questions that people have asked. Well, they're different versions of the same question a lot of times, but usually you can break it down to 30 or 50 questions. Well, guess what? You could write an entire book just based on those questions because people are asking them. Or that can be an adjunct to your main book. Like, we've got Power Up for Profits, and then you just go talk about what are the most commonly asked questions for profits or for vegan-based entrepreneurs or whatever it is. It's going to be there because somebody searched for it. And then you have the questions and then you just answer them. And that's another book.
I love that.
It's so easy.
And I forgot about Answer the Public because I actually learned that through Sean Cannell, and he does a lot of YouTubing stuff. And I've used it a few times. They've got the free version where I think you can ask 3 different topics in a day, and then you have to go into the paid version or you wait till the next day. But I think for people, it's really about staying focused on not trying to spread yourself too thin and not do too much in any given day. So, Answer the Public, and you take that one topic, you post it, you get your questions, and then write some blog posts on it. And you can actually write a book by writing a series of blog posts. It's quite simple.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. Kathleen, I think I could probably talk to you for 3 days, but we don't have 3 days. So talk about how you can use your book to grow your business and how you have specifically used yours.
Well, we'll take Power Up for Profits, and the title of the new book is called Vegan Visibility. And I have to tell you, I was on a run the other day and this came to me, Vegan Visibility. And I thought, oh, that'll never be available, that URL. I did a search on with where I get my URLs, and it was available. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I had been struggling with the title of my book. And what I realized about titles of books is oftentimes we think too much and we push it too hard instead of just letting it come to us. And when I was out on my run, it was like Vegan Visibility. Oh, that'd be a great name for the book. And I'll have the subtitle. I haven't come up with that yet. But what I'm going to do is actually write a book on how to market a vegan business. And I did my search. I've done my research. And that's one thing I encourage for authors is do your research too. Find out if there are other books by that name. Even though you can have the same name as another book, I don't encourage you to do that because you can get lost in the shuffle there. But do the research on how many books are within the genre that you're going to write in. And in vegan marketing and plant-based marketing, there's really one other person, Katrina Fox, who is like, she's crushing it out there. She is like the queen of the mountain on that. And fortunately, she and I are friends, so there's going to be no competition there. And I'm actually including her in a marketing process I'm doing because she's got a great market reach. But the book is going to be all about how to market a vegan business or a plant-based business pretty much organically. I will have some about Facebook advertising, but pretty much it's going to be organic ways like media releases, getting on podcast shows, writing books, writing blog posts, social media, speaking when the restrictions are lifted. And it's going to teach people strategically how to market their vegan business and get the visibility that they want. That book, the minute that my name goes on a book about vegan marketing, I become an influencer more than I am already, but I will become a next level influencer. And that's one reason that you want to write books is because all of a sudden you are viewed as the go-to expert. A lot of people really miss great opportunities by not managing their time in a way that they can get the book done and then use that as an entree into opening doors for consulting opportunities, speaking opportunities. I have a good friend who just wrote a plant-based cookbook, and she's going to be speaking on a cruise, and they will not take anybody to speak on the cruise unless you have a book. And she said, Kathleen, if you want to get on that cruise, you better write that book. And it's like, okay, that's one reason that I'm motivated to write the book. So books open up a lot of opportunities for you, and there are situations where you will miss the opportunity if you don't have a book.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I love about what you just said about the cruise, so it jogs my memory to mind of what I want to do. So I'm in the process of finishing my self-publishing book for healthcare providers, for healthcare business owners. I'm going to launch that, use it exactly what you're doing, which is what I've used my other books for. But I think about the miracle morning that I think Hal
Yes.
Elrod
Hal
wrote.
Elrod. Yes.
Yeah. So, but what he did was he had such amazing success with that, Kathleen. Then he did the miracle morning for attorneys, for real estate agents, for cops, for bus drivers, for, all this stuff. And what he did, and this is so fascinating. I listened to it on a podcast with maybe Chandler Bolt, I can't remember, a couple of years ago. And he went and found an attorney that had an audience. Like you had to, excuse me, you had to have an audience of like 100,000 people. And then you had to pay him maybe 50,000. I don't remember any of the numbers.
Right.
But like he brought these people in with these huge audiences and then paid them, or they paid him to write this book, like just tweaking it towards an attorney. And then they shared the profits like 50-50. And then he made even more millions with his book.
Absolutely. Well, and you know what's amazing, Jeremy, is that, people go, oh, he's so lucky. And luck has nothing to do with it. He worked his butt off. I mean, let's be honest about it. And actually, one of the things that I'm doing with the Vegan Visibility book is I'm bringing on 10 to 12 experts who will each write a short chapter, and very short chapter. And I will place those strategically throughout the book. Let's say I'm talking about media releases and press releases. Well, there's an expert within the vegan industry who that's all she really focuses on. She's being invited in to write 500 to 1,000 words. What I do with that is, okay, I've got her expertise. I've got borrowed credibility is what that's called. So you're actually borrowing somebody else's credibility. Her being in the book will encourage her to market the book. And that's going to be one of the criteria for joining in, that you have to help market the book. We're going to do a big Amazon launch, and it's not going to be one of those that I used to teach this in the past. Early on, I was one of the few people who taught the Amazon campaigns where you brought in all these experts who gave bonuses and you overwhelmed people with information. Now people are too overwhelmed that they don't want that. But people will help to market the book, to drive traffic to some kind of an opportunity. Maybe it's bonus training by the main author of the book. Well, what that does is it increases market reach. It increases credibility in the book, and each of those people I will drive back to a page on my website. This is a super hack, and I really hope people are paying attention to this one. I drive people back to my website where it's recommended resources with the 10 or 12 experts. They each have something that they offer. I'm their affiliate. So not only do we have them in the book, they're helping to market it. We drive the traffic back to my website. I'm their affiliate. They're my affiliate, because initially what we'll be doing is we give away a lot of free stuff, but they get cookied in. And for a lot of people, what I'm saying right now, it's going completely over their head. They're going, what is she talking about? This is where I recommend that you actually study the likes of Russell Brunson. You study the likes of Matt Basic, the people who are really strategic in online marketing, and you understand the terminology, because you can say, and I hear this all the time from people my age. I'm going to be 67 in a month. And people go, oh, I'm too old. I'm just too old to do that. It's like, get over it. Get over it, because you're not too old. You have something that's important to the marketplace. And this is what I really encourage authors to look at, is like, how important is your message to get out to market? And people usually say, oh, it's so important. Well, then why are you not doing everything in your power to get that message out there?
Yeah. If you were so passionate to write a book, why did your passion die in the launching, marketing, selling process?
Absolutely. And if you can't do it yourself, hire people. And it's like, really, what do you need to do to get your message out there? I'm actually hiring a consultant. He's the top consultant in doing 5-day launches in Facebook advertising. This guy is a rock star. And I thought about it, and I thought, I could probably figure this out for myself. It would take me months and months and months, or I can pay him and we can get on Zoom. He could walk me through the process. And in a matter of a few hours, I've got what I need in a way that it would have taken me months. And is it an investment? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Absolutely.
Yeah. I just went through a 5-day launch with a company called Cash Flow Tactics. So Bradley Gibb, Ryan Lee, they're very much in the ClickFunnels, Russell Brunson world. And they had 5,000 people go through it. And it was phenomenal. And it was something I wanted. I paid $2,000 to get in their program at the end, because it's a financial plan, something I needed. I'm 39. I have a wife and 2 small kids. We needed a direction. I believe in their direction. And it was all through a 5-day challenge. Now, they could have botched that 5-day challenge and I would have never spent $2,000. And I don't mind telling people I spent 2,000. Who cares? It's my money. I've worked for it. I can spend it wherever I want.
Absolutely.
But it was, they could have botched that and I would have never spent a penny, but they did it right. So it's very important to have people that know what they're doing.
You know, and you just said something that's so important, Jeremy, about the investments you make. Over the years in my business, I have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, you know, early on when I had my business, I thought, okay, I'll figure it out myself. I'm not going to spend the money. And that cost me a lot of money. And absolutely. I remember years ago, I actually hired a consultant for a 4-hour VIP day. And I had to fly into South Carolina from Oregon. I had to put myself up in a hotel, and it's in a resort area. So it was very pricey. And for 4 hours of her time, it was $15,700. And I remember when I made that decision, and it was like, ooh, this is a huge, I mean, we're talking for 4 hours. We're not talking for a year long. And I ended up enrolling in her year-long program. Best choice I ever made, because she was able to help me tweak things that the first idea that she gave me made me $50,000. And it was just something really simple. I was doing live events, and she talked about where to do the actual offer. And it was at a different time than I was doing it. That one decision, that one change made $50,000. So a lot of times people, they go, oh, that's really expensive. And you have to ask yourself, what's the return on investment? It's just like with Facebook advertising. If you could make $2 for every dollar you invest, would you do it? All day long. But a lot of people, they don't get the right training. They don't know what they're doing. They spend, they lose the money. They go, well, that's way too expensive.
Yeah. And you know, you have to value your time. And two, the people that you're working with have to value. You know, I spoke with someone about a book package, and the package that I was offering was $15,000. Mm-hmm. And the person that I was talking to said, well, I was thinking it was $1,500. And I just laughed. And this is someone who I know to be very successful business owner, all this stuff. And I said, look, we're not going to work together. Like nothing ugly.
Absolutely.
We're still friends. I'll still help you as much as I can. But we're definitely not going to be a good fit to work together, because if I'm at 15,000 and you're at 1,500, we're not coming together on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember there was a time where I had something I was offering, and I don't even know what it was, what the thing was, but it was a price point of like 15 or 20,000. And I said, yes, it's 15. And they go, oh, $15. And I'm like, I actually laughed. I said, are you flipping kidding me? You think I'm going to do this for $15? Come on. So I think people need to really look at an investment compared to an expense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the first time I signed up for a coaching program, and it was like $750 a month. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, $750 a month. And that turned out to be one of the greatest investments. Absolutely. And really, in the grand scheme of things, was not a lot of money at all. You're talking about 15,000 for an afternoon, and I'm spending $9,000 for a year. And I've since spent even more money on coaching and consultants and things like that, because like you said, you can wander around in the dark your whole life, or for 6 months figuring it out, or you can give somebody a little bit of money that you're going to make back with their advice, more than likely.
Absolutely.
And move on the next day.
Well, and the key is that you implement the information. I have a membership program for people who want to get on podcast shows, and I have challenges within the group. And it's so amazing, because there's a certain core group of people that they always jump in. They always do what I ask them to do. And they get one woman, this blew me away, within a week of joining the club and then doing what I recommended she do. She got 27 bookings on shows. And I'm like, that's almost impossible. How did you do that in a week? That's almost impossible. And she's just cranking it out and getting on great shows and doing a really wonderful job. Where I have other people that they haven't even cracked open the training, and they go, well, this stuff is really hard. It's like, okay, it's press a button, open it up.
Yeah. Press it, open it, watch this video, or read this article, and move on.
Absolutely.
I know that's very frustrating for anybody. I know. So look, I love books. I try not to say this because my business is a book, but I love podcasts. I'm really close on which one I love more. Probably really podcasts, but I shouldn't say that.
How about both? They're both like kids. Which one do you love more? For different reasons.
There you go. Okay, they're like my kids. They're the same. They're equal. I don't have a favorite. But talk about, I know it's super important. I have someone on my team that helps my authors get on podcasts because we know it's so important. How do you go about doing this? You don't have to give away the farm, but just tell us some little tips.
I'm happy to give away the farm because it really, what it is like there's a wealth of information that I love sharing. And the first thing is figure out why you want to be on shows, because if you don't know your big why, you probably will just go on the show and be a talking head without creating value and without giving the tips that can make a difference for people. So figure out why you want to be on a show, and then figure out who your actual market is and drill down. Like I had a woman recently that I've been working with. She went through a VIP experience, and we really drilled down on her market. She wanted to work with coaches. And I said, what kind of coaches? She goes, well, any kind of coach. And I said, well, there's broke coaches, there's coaches that are making money, there's health coaches, there's business coaches. I said, you need to really drill down. So once you drill down to who is your market, then what you do is you look for shows that actually have that audience. And the thing you want to look at also is, do they bring guests on? Because not every show will bring a guest on. And do not think you are Mr. or Ms. Wonderful, that you're going to be the one person that they change their whole model for. It's like, if they don't bring on guests, go to next. You
That's
might
right.
enjoy listening to their show, but don't try to get on their show. Then what you want to do is you want to see how recent the most recent episode is, because on Apple Podcast, for example, you can go in and you can look at the date of the last show that they posted. And if it's a few months old, if it's like 6 months ago, they probably are doing what's called pod fading, or they're taking a break, or maybe it's a seasonal show. So it may not be worth your while to spend time trying to get on that show. Another thing that you really should do is put a one sheet together, a very simple one sheet with topics you can speak on, because quite seriously, you will impress a host if they say, do you have some, can you send me a photo? And I think I was late in getting all my stuff to you. So I'm the plumber with the broken toilet, but quite seriously,
Right.
It's like my clients, when they put their one sheet together and the host says, can you send me some information? When they send a one sheet, most hosts are saying, okay, this person is serious about what they're doing. Another thing that you can do, and this idea just recently came to me, is you can actually create a private page that has all the reasons you should be on a show. And you can customize it depending on the size of the show and how much you want to be on that show. You can customize it for that particular show. Short video, topics you can speak about based on what you know about their show. Listen to a show before you approach a host. You don't have to listen to hours and hours and hours of episodes, but listen to part of their show, because then you know what they talk about, you know who they are, and you know their interview style. So those are a few tips, but the main thing is be consistent. One show is not going to get you the result you want. I had somebody recently who said, well, I was on 2 shows and I get a better result from Facebook Lives and yada,
No,
yada, yada. And I know, it's like, you really don't, because this is a long game. This is a part of your strategy. And I think that we've turned into such a get rich quick society and an instant fix society. That's why the diet industry is such a wealthy industry, because people want that magic pill that's going to fix everything. It's sticking with the process and doing it consistently, to where you should be getting on shows at least once a week if you're serious about this. And just make it a part of your marketing strategy. And also, if you have a show, make sure you're bringing on the right kind of guests. For example, on my show, I have 2 shows. I have Power Up for Profits and I have Plant-Based Eating for Health. On the plant-based eating show, if somebody is not 100%, and I do not bend this rule at all, they must be 100% animal and dairy free in their eating. And if they're not, I don't care if they're 99%, they don't come on my show. I have a really, really good friend who wants to be on my show, and she knows that until she's been plant-based for a year, she's not coming on my show. She's about 95%. And she said for Easter, she goes, I had to cut the ham for my mother-in-law. She goes, and I was tempted to take a bite, but I didn't, because I thought, what would Kathleen think? I can't get on her show. So it's like, make sure if you have a show that you set the criteria and you make sure that you are honoring the criteria for yourself and your audience, because it's also about how can you really create value for the audience of the show that you're on. It's not about how wonderful we are. I mean, people could care less about who we are. They care about the value we bring to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely. I want to ask you one question. This is kind of tongue in cheek and stupid to ask, but I'm asking anyway. Have you ever done a podcast episode where you were like, oh, I can't air that?
Yes, yes, I have, and I don't air it. It's like because I think it actually compromises the credibility that you have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Awesome. Oh my goodness, Kathleen, this has been like so value packed. And yeah, I know audience guys, if you're listening to this, I know that this has been so much value. We've talked about how to get on podcasts. We've talked about how to grow your business with a book and 5-day challenges. We've really spanned a ton of stuff here that are super helpful for everybody. So please, go back and listen to this one again. Reach out to Kathleen if she can help you. Kathleen, I would love for you to just say, hey, look, where can you come find me?
Thank you for asking. I appreciate that, Jeremy. Actually, there's two places. One is powerupforprofits.com. That's powerupforprofits.com. It's got all my social handles. And the other one, if you're interested in plant-based eating for health.com. That's plant-based eating for health.com. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny. I saw someone attack somebody else on Facebook yesterday for, promoting another person. And I'm like, no, we should all be promoting each other. There's plenty of money. There's plenty of people to go around.
Absolutely.
Why fight over it?
Absolutely. I think it's more about collaboration and really supporting each other rather than seeing each other as competition, but understanding there is competition. And if you can partner with your competition, you're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Kathleen, I would love to have you back on when you get your book finished so we can talk about all the amazing things and we can help you launch that. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's been delightful and I'd love to come back.